got a lot of news today. The Spurs made a trade, one of the first teams to make some sort of trade heading into the deadline now, and which is in February, as most people know. Spurs traded a second round pick. We don't know the protections on it. We don't even know what year it is. But the Spurs traded a second round pick to get back Noah Vonleh and cash considerations from the Boston Celtics. Um, it helps out the Boston Celtics. They avoid some salary cap issues. Um, Maybe gets you in with that front office with Brad Stevens a little bit, and you if the Spurs they immediately waive Noah Vonleh and they waive Gorgui Dieng initially to make room for the trade. Um, Thoughts on this? Is it too early to grade it? Is this just kind of a procedural thing? Initial thoughts, Evan.
When we looked at I forgot who made that initial trade, or the tweet was like breaking down, I think the cash um, considerations and the details on that. This is just, the first, match to the ongoing and hopefully big engulfing fire that should just start everything in lines of trades, in lines of discussions of three-team trades with other teams. The Spurs have been, really good friends with these Eastern Conference teams that, the Celtics, the Raptors they traded with frequently the past few years. So, yeah, I think that well, actually, one, then got to make that tweet now. I see Austin to join us. Shout out to Austin for topping in with us. I think people should be able to see maybe if it's on the timeline. So I think we should just retweet again. But then also, just to get back to my main point, if the Spurs were to be aggressive and try and trade Jay Rich, try and trade Doug, try and see maybe they can get 2 picks for Jakob Poeltl. Um, Devin Vassell being out simultaneously, they knew that he was gonna probably have surgery. Probably a couple days ago, maybe solidified last night after he was doubtful to out. Um, this means, hey, we're full on the tank. We're probably gonna start Blake Wesley. We're probably gonna start Malachi Branham over Romeo Langford some games. So I'm looking to see how long it'll take to see when the next trade will go down. It should be not long. Hopefully, a couple days, you think?
Yeah, um, I mean, there's the rumors are going to start. That's for sure. Um, but I mean, we got this trade to get us started. Yeah, I think actually the biggest thing was the Spurs are leaving a roster spot open, presumably to shuttle someone back and forth between Austin and San Antonio. Like you were mentioning, Malachi Branham, he's playing in the G League now. He's probably going to find himself in San Antonio. He's going to play some more minutes. Hopefully, this also means when he's ready, Wesley Blake is getting more minutes. Blake Wesley, I can never. Stop having double names, everybody, please.
Oh, God.
Um, but I think it really just leaves them a spot to shuttle a guy back and forth, I would say. But I think we all know what the bigger news is: Devin Vassell's knee.
Yeah, no, I remember he made a quote, I want to say a couple of weeks ago, where I think it should have got a lot of more attention, where he literally simply said, it is what it is. Some days my knee's just, a little more painful than others. And this is when, everyone was damn near hurt. This is when we didn't win a game in November, you know? And ideally, I'm just thinking like, if Devin is out for 2 to 3 months, we don't have any volume shooting besides Doug McDermott. Josh Richardson is the streakiest shooter in the NBA. Sometimes he's 5 for 6 from three. Sometimes he's 1 for 7, 1 for 8. We're not gonna win any games. It's like if Keldon isn't on, Trey isn't, the Jakob Poeltl pick and roll isn't going. We have no chance of winning that game. So this is an all-on, full-on tank job. I know Devin probably needed to rest. We definitely need to give him some time off. But yeah, that news dropping out of nowhere. Like I said, simultaneously back to back with the Noah Vonleh cash considerations trade. It's insane, man. I love seeing Devin's game. He's definitely opened up a new um, he just took a next step, added a new level to his game, a new bag, the Penny Hardaway step back dribble, pull up from mid range, the cross dribble between step backs. His game is based full on touch. So if he could just go home, do the little shoot the ball in the bed and and just work on your touch, man. Don't worry about stepping on the floor. You get back in shape in a couple of weeks. Don't worry about it, or a couple of months. We don't even know how long he's gonna be out. So who knows, man?
I think it's really going to depend on what they find in his knee. If they find that it's really bad or if it's just kind of minor stuff, I think this initial surgery is just to see what's going on in there, see what's wrong with his knee. But like you said, he's going to be out a few months, probably 2 to 3 months, and if you're coming back at the end of March, beginning of April, the Spurs don't have any real chance at a playing game or anything like that. I'd say just keep him out, let him rest, make sure he's in the gym this offseason working on everything he needs to work on. But like you said, he was really starting to show a couple extra levels of his game there, and it was really fun to watch. Frankly, I'm going to miss that. And so now you have to wonder where all the shots are going to be going to. You have to imagine Keldon Johnson's going to get quite a few more shots. Probably Doug McDermott. You imagine Josh Richardson is. If those young guys make their way to San Antonio from Austin, surely they'll get some shots. But you should absolutely expect the Spurs to be selling at the trade deadline and just try to not recoup, but try and trade for as many draft picks as possible. They need to go full OKC and just decide we're going to have 5 picks this draft and there's nothing you can do about it. Um,
You know, uh, I can't fully on agree with that just because adding more just teenagers to this team, I, the 3 or 4 haul of 19-year-olds coming to San Antonio, I think those days are over. Just quite yet. Maybe we get 2 guys coming to San Antonio this summer. I know that Charlotte pick may not convey our way. That would be
yeah,
great, but
may not convey.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, not this year. They got to 2025. They got to 2025 to decide. But
Well, it's not.
ideally,
It's not to decide. It's to get to the playoffs.
that's true. That's true. We got a long way to go. The season's still not over yet. So,
Yeah,
you,
it might be for them. They're pretty
yeah,
bad.
yeah. But as of right now, man, like I was looking at next year's free agency class. Obviously, we see the names that are recognizable, like D'Angelo Russell, not looking like a Spur. Who else? James Harden, not looking like a Spur. You know, the Spurs don't have a solidified first option. I made a tweet about that earlier. They don't have a first option, a number one guy to go to day in and day out to say, hey, go give me a bucket, 22 points, 35 minutes, you're our guy. It's not Devin, it's not Keldon. And if we get that in the draft, hey, you better start building around him sooner rather than later. Obviously, everybody wants Wimby or Scoot. Can't have both. It'll be nice. But at the end of the day, one of those guys is going to impact, okay, maybe Trey Jones's free agency, maybe on the lines of a lot of other possible wings on this draft. Get this, you know, the Jay Rich possibly having one more year on this team if he doesn't get traded, uh, or no, not sorry, not Jay Rich, Doug McDermott, $13 million. That's a lot of money for someone that can't play defense. Great cutter, great finish at the rim last night. We saw it a couple times last year. But he's what, 34, 35? In the NBA age, that's close to 40, and you're going to be on the lines of Duncan Robinson not being able to get moved, not be able to get traded unless you're on the lines of a big 3-team trade. The Spurs are not really fond of that. I know they got the who was it? Did they get in return? It was Chandler Hutchison in the 5-team Russell Westbrook trade. we're not super big on those huge team trades. So to acquire more talent for our possible number one guy for Scoot or for Wemby or even for one of the Thompson twins or Cam Whitmore, we got to go out in free agency. I'm looking at guys like Delano Banton. I'm looking at guys like Oh man, I don't want to bring back Bryn Forbes, but I, I'm literally looking at the free agency
Don't
list
do
right
it,
now, and I'm
Evan.
just like, I can't, no, I can't. Omer Yurtseven. I know Charles Bassey has been a great addition to the Spurs. He's on a two-way contract. We'll have to see if he's going to be the solidified backup. Zach Collins has honestly been the best backup for the Spurs in terms of big man, but he can't play power forward anymore. We've seen that in plain plain sight. He gets burned on the perimeter and he gets dunked on half the time because his arms don't move that quick. He can't block shots. So he's great at deferring, but you know we're gonna have to really decide. Hey, who can play around Wemby? Who can play around Scoot? And these sweepstakes start now. You know, I don't think that Doug McDermott is like the best veteran. I want to say presence, but like if we need one or two more veteran presences, I'd rather have like a George Hill on a $1 million, $2 million minimum contract, or try and find a way to trade back for Patty Mills to him be a mentor for Blake. Delano Bannon can play a little bit of backup point guard. He's a small forward, 6'9", dual forward. You know, I can mention all the crazy 6'10" jumbo initiators, the Leonard Millers, the Anthony Blacks, all these guys that we can possibly trade for at this deadline to solidify us getting depth for our future. Then it is, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but it is so important to do this because, man, how bad would it be to be in like I don't want to say the New York Knicks standpoint of saying, okay, hey, 2 or 3 years from now, they call Jalen Brunson, who's an all-star, Julius Randle, who's an all-star, and RJ Barrett, who's super inconsistent. They call them the mid three. They call them the mid three in New York.
Jeez.
I would hate to be in a position to where, okay, yeah, we missed out on Scooter Wemby. We have our fifth or sixth pick. What if it's Nick Smith, Keontae George? They can be a nice second option, but we have to get that first option, and we have to build around them this year. Because if we don't, we're just messing around in purgatory. This little fine line of being the worst team in the NBA and banking on, okay, the lottery going our way. 2 or 3 years from that in a row, man, these rumors of us moving to Austin are never going to end.
Yeah.
Vegas never going to end. It's going to be bad. So we really have to knock it down this summer. It's 6 months from now, man.
By the
6
way,
months.
for what it's worth, Doug McDermott just turned 31 2 days ago, so he's not as old as you thought he was.
I okay, great. Okay,
But
that makes me feel a little bit better.
but
Okay,
but
sorry.
having said that, he will be a little older by the time his contract ends. Um, but I mean, if you're talking about not necessarily a mid guy, but that the second star, your second guy on a team, people who are available in free agency this year include Jeremy Grant. I happen to like him a lot. He's going to be 29 by that time. Miles Turner will be 27. Miles Turner has been a bit of a saga as well because
Yeah.
he's been rumored to be traded out of Indiana on a number of occasions. So that's potential right there. You want to talk about a guy who could go out and get his own shot. Um, Karis LeVert will be a free agent.
Okay.
Um, Will Barton will be he's going to be over 32 though. So if you're concerned about age, that's a legitimate concern for him. Um, but if you want an older guy who doesn't mind getting less minutes, but who's still going to help you, Splash Mountain is going to be available in the offseason. Brooke Lopez,
Oh Lord.
a
No, Austin.
guy, I
Gotta get
mean,
Austin.
kind of a flamethrower guy who's still playing well, but his minutes have been spotty in Orlando. Terrence Ross. There are options. They're kind of odd options, but they are there. Um, I mean, so don't discount it completely. But I mean, yeah, if you're the Spurs, you are banking on getting the one or two pick so that you can pair, you can create the rest of your roster basically based on Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson.
Yeah, not gonna lie, you reading those names kind of made me a little queasy in the stomach.
That's fair.
Thinking of Will Barton taking away solid reps and solid rotation minutes for Malachi, Devin, because you have to play him. You have to play him. You don't just sit him on the bench. You have to play him. You pay him all this money. And man, and that's why it's so important, man. It's so important to get rid of and make these roster moves now. Free the space, get these guys signed to full contracts. decide who's going to be a long-term Spur, who's going to be here just for a rental year, and realistically, who's cool with playing the role that they are given. I did not expect Jeremy Sohan to give Isaiah Roby minimum contract. Isaiah Roby has had a lot of DNPs this year. I did not see that coming. He's cool with that. Apparently, he's on the bench, engaging with guys. I look at the body language a lot. Austin, I'll get to you in a second, but that's great. Isaiah Roby, you're doing a fantastic job. We were scouting him back in the draft. He was happy to be here. We picked him up for what, $150 million, and at the end of the day, he's cool with being on the bench. He's a 6'10", 6'9", dual forward, can play a little bit of small ball center, and when his number is called, he's in there grinning ear to ear, ready to play some Spurs basketball. We can find that. If we can find that just with a couple more guys that are just super down, just to say, hey, I'm here. I'm here for the long run. I'll be super down for that. Let me land this plane, Austin, man. I appreciate you being patient. Thank you for finding us. I know this was kind of weird to try and scroll and to tap into, but I appreciate you joining us all as well. Make sure you give Austin a follow. What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, man. Apologies ahead of time if I sound terrible. Your boy is down with the sickness, as the kids say. So it's been a brutal last few days. But I kind of had like a two-pronged question for you guys. Do you think the Spurs dropping? Well, this trade is minor, but do you think? And then the Vassell news happened like 30 minutes later. Do you think that means that the trade's on the horizon and that these things are somehow kind of linked together? That they're dropping these two roster spots. They got the cash from the Celtics to do these things, and now they're releasing. Hey, now Vassell, we don't know if he's out for the year, but it's January. It wouldn't be crazy to think even if he could come back in March, they would probably just Spurs being Spurs and being management's about health. They probably would sit him out for the rest of the year just to make sure that he's fine. And the second part question being, does this injury with this knee issue affect his contract extension, like what he gets paid going forward? Because he missed about 9 games before this. He played, I think, 28 out of I think 29 out of 38 games up until this point. But say he missed the rest of the year, does that also affect what he could get paid?
Um, I don't think it'll affect how much he'll get paid because his performance he's a solidified two-way wing that's a volume shooter, mid-range buckets, three-point range and transition buckets. If he can find a way to attack the rim and be more aggressive, add on some more lbs to the shoulders, some bolder shoulders. Ideally, he can. Not I want to say a max contract, but you remember that $17-18 million we're talking about, that illustrious first, the number one, being a top guy, the DeJounte Murray, the Derek White contract level type of contract. I definitely see him getting that. What Keldon got, ideally, just sitting around there. But the trade, Ben, I'll get your opinion in a second. But I I did say the trade possibly had was just like the first match to hopefully a huge fire to what can just kickstart the whole league into trades. December 16th was 2 weeks ago, right? That's a day to remember. No one made a trade. They're having surgery. Devin's having surgery January 11th. I just confirmed. That's in 5 days. Is it 5 days? 6 days. Why not tomorrow? Why not the next day? Oh, we got to make sure these trade talks go well. Oh, we got to make sure he's out for so and so weeks, not this many weeks. And it's probably something I have no inside information. I don't know anybody from the Spurs organization like that. But right now, I just really hope that if the one trade that we can make is like the Doug McDermott, Jay Rich, Romeo Langford, if that is for somebody that wants to be on this team long term, that's going to be a free agent, and we just do the under the table handshake, the Omar Yurks someone from Washington, someone from Charlotte. I would love that. But if not, it's no big deal. I know Ben talked a little bit too much, but do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, I think the big thing about the reason he's doing it January 11th is partly because that's probably when the doctor's available and can do it, and he has to get up to New York. And there's probably a whole thing about, if you're flying up there, you got to make sure you're X hours away from having been on a plane. You're in a different pressure situation, like literal physical pressure, not, like free throws at the end of a game pressure. But I think that plays a role in it. I think that that news coming out all right after each other is probably not a coincidence. I get the feeling that if the Spurs are going to have news, they like to do it all at once. Because otherwise they could have just waited till January 11th and said, "Yeah, by the way, Devin Vassell's having surgery today." Um, but they didn't do that. So I think there's not coincidence there. It's definitely on purpose. Um, I think this trade might be the one that opens things up a bit, but I mean, I don't think it's any secret that the Spurs are willing to give up some guys to, to secure a more firm and stable future. Um, and now I've completely forgotten the second question. I was so disturbed by Austin's news of his sickness that I I forgot the second question, but I also really needed to make that joke, or else my inner dad jokiness was like going to explode. So I have
I,
that out of the system now.
no, as a dad, I approve and I applaud you, and I think you should be commended for it. But no, the second part was just about the extension with Devin Vassell, and if those injuries, which can be kind of scary, can affect his extension going forward.
Yes. Okay. So I think he's definitely getting extended. That's not going to be an issue. I think the bigger issue is how serious is the knee injury? How long is the surgery going to knock him out? If it's a pretty major surgery, you could be looking at, a Steph Curry discount contract kind of deal here where a lot of people forget, but the reason the Warriors had such a long window with Steph and with a lot of their other guys was because they got Steph right after his ankle surgery that was pretty serious, where people were like, "Oh no, is Steph going to be the same guy afterwards?" And they got him for 4 years, $44 million. I don't know that the Spurs will get the sell for that cheap, just because the salary cap is much higher and the numbers have inflated over the years. So I think they'll get, whatever the 2023 equivalent of that is, maybe a 4-year extension worth 60 million. It's not quite 20, it's 15 mil a year, which he's probably worth more than that, assuming he's healthy, but you take the chance, well, if he's not healthy, we're not getting too killed on this contract.
I'm telling you, man, that 17, 18 million, I know the cap is going up. I know that we got a new CBA agreement to make in a couple of years, if not next year, I think. But no, that 17, 18 million, that's the Spurs way. That's Devin Vassell is gonna make what will be 3 years, 4 years he's eligible for. If I'm not mistaken, I have to give him a little 2K GM mind on if I'm not mistaken.
It
But
should be 4 years. They have his bird rights.
yeah, so yeah, if they can match ideally almost what DeJounte, Derek, and Kelvin got, I think that's fair. Because if he's our leading scorer, well, Kelvin's the leading scorer right now, 21, but Devin was they were back and forth for 20.5 and 20.3 for the longest. When Kelvin was on that horrible, 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 just 2 or 3 week stretch where he couldn't make anything, hitting the side of the backboard. Devin Vassell was not only our leader on the court, but he was our leading scorer. He was if we didn't have Jakob Poeltl, we were going to lose that game. And then if we had Devin Vassell, we had a chance leading up to the third quarter. And all we needed was really a chance in these games just to solidify who can play what role. See, we saw a lot of Romeo Langford. He had 23 points a couple nights ago. Um, we need that we have to get that. Excuse me. With We need to see that with Devin Vassell on the floor, because if you don't get that with guys that don't get playing time, you don't know what they have in their tank. You don't know what they're able to do in the Spurs system, and on a consistent basis. That is because everyone can have a good night, and at the NBA level, these guys are amazing $1 million athletes. But to do that consistently, people are dogging Zach Collins. People are dogging Charles Bassey after he had a bad stretch. But that's what I'm looking for to see, like who's going to be the solidified backup, who's going to be the secondary initiator on offense for our second unit, stuff like that. So with Devin being out, look for guys like Malachi to step up. Obviously, Romeo has been starting a lot. He's been locking guys up on defense. So yeah, it's going to be a long, long next few weeks. But hopefully Devin's not out for too long.
Absolutely. And, appreciate Austin coming up, asking some questions. We are happy to take questions from anyone else. If there's no one else, I think Evan and I are gonna get out of here. We're gonna let you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Maybe still wallow about the Knicks game yesterday. Who knows? Got a game tomorrow, I think, if I'm not mistaken. They're playing a back-to-back starting tomorrow. So, get into it. Enjoy the NBA life is what I would say. I think next time Evan and I come on, we're going to talk a lot more prospects. I know we mentioned Scoot Henderson, we mentioned Victor Wembanyama, a little bit of Nick Smith, some Anthony Black. We really want to get into that, especially with conference play starting in college basketball. We're going to get a better idea of how these guys play when they're getting scouted and they're playing teams twice a year. And of course, as the NCAA tournament comes around the corner in March. So appreciate you all. This space is recorded for anybody who might have missed the beginning part of it. I know Twitter is being weird today. It's not exactly showing spaces where it usually does. So we appreciate everyone who was able to come on. We will see you guys next week. Evan, let them know where they can find everything.
Well, I ain't got nothing to post as of late. We just doing these spaces. So you can find me right here. You can click on this page. You can click on this face and just follow me. You can follow Ben at the _ Bornstein. That's the guy that got all the content. That's the guy that makes all the good articles. I'll be making sure I retweet those. Austin, shout out to you for joining us. John Cho, appreciate you. Never gonna call you by your stage name because we don't do that in 2023. Yeah, hey, we appreciate you guys. If you guys have any questions about the draft, about the Spurs, DM us at any point in time. We got you. Appreciate the platform. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will see you guys sometime next week.
Thanks, y'all.